Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that's all about speaking your truth, sharing your stories, and sparking the conversations that matter most. I'm your host, Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On It Show. On this show, we dive deep into the thoughts, experiences, and ideas that shape our world. It's a place where voices are heard, perspectives are celebrated, and discussions are not just encouraged, but cherished. Whether it's culture, politics, personal growth, or just life's everyday adventures, we're here to explore it all. We've got engaging interviews, thought-provoking discussions, and sometimes we might even stir the pot a little bit. Speak On The Show is where we challenge the status quo, celebrate diversity, and engage in conversations that make us think, laugh, and grow. So get ready to be inspired, get ready to connect, and most importantly, get ready to speak your truth. Without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. It's time for the Speak On It Show with your host, Rodney W. Collins. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. I am Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On The Show. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there this morning? Hopefully you had a good week. You know, we getting into the holiday season. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. Let's get these formalities out the way. Broadcasting live this morning on the Rodney W. Collins channel on YouTube and Facebook, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific every Saturday morning. Tune in, like, share, subscribe, do what you do. You know, with the other shows you watch, other people you follow as well. Like, follow, share, subscribe, all those different things you do on the social media platforms. Yeah. So today is the 22nd of November. 22nd of November. November's almost gone. This week, this coming up week, we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving. But I wanted to touch on this real quick before we get into the show, before we get into some of the meat of what we're going to talk about. We've talked about last couple of weeks, we talked about death. Last week, we talked about, are you satisfied? But I want to ask this question. I want you to ponder this because I got something else for the mind, body, and soul. But I thought about this morning when I was thinking about you. The question I would ask you is, are you enjoying the journey? Are you appreciating and enjoying the journey? And when I say the journey, I'm talking about where you've been, where you're at, and where you're going. Are you truly enjoying the journey, or are you just going through the motions of the journey? See, the journey in the full spectrum is to be enjoyed. Like I said last week, there's no do-overs. So are you truly enjoying the journey? I want you to start thinking about that as we get closer to the new year. And like I say, always say, we'll get into this a little later on as well. But I always tell people I don't talk about resolutions. I talk about lifestyle changes and things like that. But I want you to concentrate on the fact of going into 2026 and starting today. Are you truly enjoying the journey? Or are you just going through the motions of the journey? Or what do you need to adjust? Or what kind of pivots do you need to make in your journey? Just a little food for thought this morning. I thought about you. I said, you know what? I know somebody out there needed to hear that this morning of the journey that you're on. Are you enjoying it? Is it something holding you back from enjoying the journey? What is blocking your blessings in this journey? Those are things that I think we need to start looking at. Those are things we need to get a broader perspective of as far as our journey, because in this journey, you're going to have your trials and tribulations, your roadblocks, but do you let your journey be defined by those roadblocks? Or do you define your journey by the obstacles that you've overcome in order to enjoy this journey? Just a question I want to put out there, food for thought. Don't get too deep into it. Just want to put a little food for thought in your mind this morning before we get into everything else. Again, I am Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On The Show, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific every Saturday morning. broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook. So yeah, we're going to get into this. Got a couple things, a couple of different topics we're going to touch on, but I wanted to start off with that because it was just something that was on my mind and something that was, radiating through me that I felt somebody else needed to hear, because I have to ask myself sometimes. Don't get me wrong. When I come on here and I talk about these things, I'm not a guru. I ain't got everything together, but I wanted to bring this up to, for you guys, so you can see and start looking at things in a different context and recognize if you need to make that pivot, make that pivot. Make that pivot in order for you to be able to truly enjoy the journey. All right. So let's go on and get into this. We're going to start off with in the news, and then we got some other things I want to talk about. We're going to break this down. Let's go. In the news. So this week, well, I think it might have been yesterday. I'm not sure of the day. But the person sitting in the Oval Office decided that he was going to have a meeting with the new mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani. And what's odd about this is this is the person that they were calling a communist and all these different names, a jihadist and all these different names. But this person sitting in the Oval Office made it a point to meet with this person that they had all these different names for. Now, the question I have is, if this person is everything that they said that he was, why is the person sitting in the Oval Office after he called them out these names and New York was going to go to hell if he became the mayor, and the people spoke and said, no, we want him as the mayor? Why would he meet with him? Let me give you a little perspective on who this man is that sits in this Oval Office. This man is an opportunist. He met with the mayor because the mayor's name is in everybody's mouths about what's going to happen in New York. He won New York by a big margin. This person that sits in the Oval Office is just looking to latch on to somebody that is a winner, because his poll numbers are down. Everything about what he's doing is in disarray. His cabinet people leaving, and all these different things. The Epstein file. These are all distractions. He could care less about Mamdani. He could care less about New York. He even had nerve to say, now that he's the mayor, he would think about moving back to New York. Well, you can't, because you got those charges against him. But, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But the bottom line is, he is riding the coattails of a winner. He's latching on to someone who has the people's ears about what he's going to do to make things better, because this guy that sits in the Oval Office is making everything bad for everybody. Let's just be straight up honest about it. And then, to caveat on that, I seen last night or yesterday evening. I want you to remember when I said this. I told y'all maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that. Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. And I said that when I was talking about this new, elections coming up later on, and people trying to straddle the fence on what they stand for and what they mean and all these different things. Well, yesterday evening, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was on the outs with the Trump administration because of things she said and how she's not supporting all these different things, came out and she's resigning from Congress, from the House of Representatives. She's going to resign after her fallout with Trump. And she went into this big spiel about she's going back so she can deal with her people directly and all this kind of stuff. I guess her constituents and all these type things that she came up with. But I think at the end of the day, what we had to do is realize that these people are opportunists. And when the opportunities exhaust themselves, they run. Because he's been attacking her. He said he don't know where she's going wrong. All these, this and that. And then out of the blue, she decides she's going to resign. Now, the question would be, why now? This woman has been the biggest, staunchest supporter of this person in the Oval Office. And now she's walking away. She's resigning as of January 5th. What would cause that? What would cause her at this time to walk away? You have to ask yourself, because I look at it in this manner and I say, to a certain extent, you were hell-bent on standing up for this person. And now that things are going awry with this person, now all of a sudden your constituents aren't important anymore. You're walking away because you're not getting your way. These are the people that have supported him staunchly throughout his whole administration, the first one and this one. And now she's walking away. But more will come out. More will come out because someone said, I seen something where it said, well, she's probably going to try to run for governor of Georgia, or she's going to try to go somewhere else and do something else in Georgia, still in the politics or whatever. But we'll see. And if you remember, her biggest fallout with him was the fact that he didn't endorse her to become a senator. He didn't endorse her to become senator, to run for senator of Georgia. He didn't think she could win. So we're going to keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on that. But the other thing I want to get into, this is something that the Department of Education, which, you know, we got a wrestling, the wrestling CEO's ex-wife is in part of the Department of Education, who has no educational background whatsoever, but that's what this administration does. Nursing is no longer considered a professional degree. What changed? Nursing, and there's other ones, but what the article says by Kate Perez is nursing is no longer considered a professional degree. As President Donald Trump's administration redefines which degrees are considered professional, many graduate students are left with questions and concerns about how to finance their education. With a current list and definition of professional degrees used by the Department of Education, which omits some professions like nursing, here's what to know about which programs are listed and what it could mean for students. And it says, what is a professional degree? The confusion and controversy stem from a 1965 federal law which defines a professional degree as one that signifies both completion of the academic requirements for beginning practice in a given profession and a level of professional skill beyond that normally required for a bachelor's degree. The definition goes on to list examples of a professional degree, including, and they got them all listed here, and they're mostly medical, pharmacy, dentistry, veterinary medicine, chiropractor, law, medicine, optometry, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, theology. While the definition states the list is not exhaustive and that professional licensure is also generally required, past Department of Education committee meetings this fall to discuss student loan regulations and other issues have used the initial description that includes only those 10 degrees. These are the list of degrees not classed as professional by this administration. Nursing, physician assistants, physical therapists, audiologists, architects, accountants, educators, social workers. These are all not classified as being professional degrees. I'm not going to read them again. You can look up the article. But what it all boils down to is this. This Department of Education and what they're doing is they're looking for ways to streamline and do whatever they need to do to eliminate the opportunities for a lot of people. So these things that are not being considered professional degrees goes into what type of loans you can get or student loans that a person can get. If it's not a professional degree, then you may not be able to get a student loan to be able to go to school for the degree, or the amount of money you may be able to get in order to get that degree, considered not professional, is going to be minimal. I'm going to keep an eye on this because in an August 28th letter to the Office of Post-Secondary Education, the American Council on Education has pushed for changing the definition and adding more programs, including nursing, architecture, the ones I just named. The American Nurses Association has also expressed concern with the current definition, with Association President Jennifer Mensick Kennedy saying in a letter that excluding nursing will severely restrict access to critical funding for graduate nursing education. undermining efforts to grow and sustain the nursing workforce. So, how it impacts the students? Currently, the definition is being used in discussions surrounding student loan caps under the Trump administration's Big Beautiful Bill, which could drastically impact how much students are allowed to borrow. The bill eliminates the Grad Plus loan program, which has historically helped students pursue careers in medicine, law, and other training-intensive careers, and places caps on the Parent Plus program, limiting them to $20,000 per year per student with a $65,000 total limit. Graduate students pursuing professional degrees on the defined list are able to borrow up to $50,000 per year and up to $200,000 overall. But for students in graduate programs that are not considered professional degrees, loans are capped at $20,500 per year. Graduate programs are limited to $100,000 overall. This means students in programs not listed on the list or defined as a professional degree could face a lower loan cap when pursuing those programs. The loan changes and overall adjustments to higher education finances and funding are slated to take effect on July 1st of 2026. So those are the disparities in how much money you can borrow or how much of a loan they will grant you. Depends on whether your whatever field you want to go into is considered to be a professional degree. How did we get here? See, this is what I talk about on here, and I've mentioned many times, is it seems to me that this so-called Republican Party is continually to find things to take away, but not finding things to add value. They're looking for ways to take things away from the everyday working class citizen in this country, rather than find ways to either restructure or, make the programs better. But if you notice in all these conversations we have on here, when I report these things, everything has to do with what they're taking away, what they're limiting, what you're no longer able to do. And I'll say it for the ones in the cheap seats. This is what you voted for. But now we, the normal everyday citizen that didn't vote for this, we're the ones being affected as well. We're the ones being affected as well, somehow, some way. It's crazy. It's crazy. But this is where we're at. This is where we're at, and we're just going to have to deal with it until, 2026, November? When the midterms come around, things could change. I don't know how much could change in that time, but we still got a long time with this person to keep doing what they're continually doing. Terrence Collins, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, my brother. So, yeah, it's I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let's go. Only the warrior who has faced battle truly knows its cost. Yet it's the spectators who shout the loudest. Everybody's got something to say about your life, but most of them, they've never fought your battles. They didn't feel the pressure. They didn't carry your fears. They weren't there when you almost broke, but didn't. So don't let their noise define you. Don't explain your scars to the unscarred. Respect your scars. They're not signs of weakness. They're receipts of your strength. You're not here for applause. You're here for alignment. Legacy isn't given, it's built. Own the journey. Embrace the power. Live the legacy. Lifegistics Coaching Solutions. Welcome back. Lifegistics Coaching Solutions. Lifegistics Coaching at gmail.com is the website. Is the email. Lifegisticscoaching.com is the website. Reach out to me. See if we can set up a schedule, get you on a schedule so we can start working on setting some goals, building some confidence, doing these things. Go to the website. You can find all the information you need there to be able to get in and, let's work together. Let's work together. Got some big things coming in 2026 with the Lifegistics, but we'll get into that on another day. So, yeah. we're going to keep doing what we know. Reggie P. good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. So let's talk about the military for a minute, because there's some things. There's some things that went on this week that a lot of people were talking about, and I want to make sure that, as veterans, I think we understand, but there may be some civilians that really don't understand. There was this big outrage about 6 Democrats doing a video, and in the video they were telling and reinforcing what the UCMJ currently says about, and I'm trying to find what I got here. Y'all hold on for a minute. But basically what they're doing is they're reinforcing the fact that you, as a military member, as an active duty member, should not follow unlawful orders, which is something that's written, which is something we understand. And they were saying that, this administration said it was seditious for them to make this video, because they took it as where they were telling military members not to follow orders at all. That's not what they said. And if you watch the video, they were specific that they do not have to follow unlawful orders. And then there was some things about confusion and everything like that. Then they said, well, it shouldn't have been said. And I seen some posts saying, have they never watched A Few Good Men and how unlawful order can get somebody killed? All these different things. But me watching it, being a military member, what jumped out at me was the fact that, yes, is it something that needs to be reiterated? Probably so, because at this time and in this temperature and this, what season we're in with these people that are in power, you have to look at the big picture and say, sometimes things need to be reiterated. It's just like when I was a supervisor, when I was a manager, I had to reiterate certain things to my troops to make sure they understood the consequences of their actions. So I don't see anything wrong with what they did. I think the problem comes in is because on the scale in which they did it. Because I know there's times where we have to reiterate to all the people that work for us, just like in the regular civilian sector. You have to reiterate certain policies and procedures that are supposed to be done in the workplace in order to keep you, the company, and the individuals out of trouble. So I think it just got blown out of proportion because of the climate that we're in and the person who they're talking specifically about, who could issue these unlawful orders, to reiterate to people that they have a choice. They have a choice whether to follow an unlawful order or not. Because if they follow an unlawful order, they're the ones that could be up for court-martial, not the one that gave it specifically. So this brouhaha about all this, come on, people. Come on. It ain't that serious. They made a video. They talked about what the UCMJ says as far as what the law says about following an unlawful order, or you have the right to not follow an unlawful order. And now people are in an uproar. But what they're not in an uproar about, they pick and choose. See, this is the thing. They pick and choose. They're in an uproar about someone reiterating what the UCMJ says. But they weren't in an uproar. You didn't hear them coming out and being all upset when this article came out reporting that the Coast Guard had allowed potentially divisive swastikas and nooses were not considered hate paraphernalia. In the Coast Guard, if you had a noose or a swastika hanging in your rooms, it wasn't considered hate speech. But they're not magnifying that, but they're magnifying the fact that these people were just reiterating what the UCMJ says. And it says the U.S. Coast Guard has reversed course on its controversial move to reclassify the Nazi-era swastika insignia and nooses as potentially divisive following widespread backlash. The Washington Post first picked up the policy change, which was written earlier this month and was set to take effect on December 15th. Just hours later, the Post's Pentagon correspondent Tara Koop reported that the Coast Guard had released a new policy late Thursday that reestablishes that it specifically sees swastikas and nooses as hate symbols and that they are expressly prohibited. The military service operates under the Department of Homeland Security. The Trump administration has vowed to take forceful and unprecedented steps to combat anti-Semitism, but the Republican Party has been accused of growing more tolerant of Nazis. Divisive or hate symbols or flags are prohibited, the latest Coast Guard policy said, noting that these would include a noose, a swastika, and any symbols or flags co-opted or adopted by hate-based groups. It said the display of any divisive or hate symbol is prohibited and shall be removed from all Coast Guard workplaces, facilities, and assets. This is not an updated policy, but a new policy to combat any misinformation and double down that the U.S. Coast Guard forbids these symbols, a Coast Guard press release said. The Daily Beast has reached out to the U.S. Coast Guard Department of Homeland Security for comment. The Coast Guard's move to reclassify the Nazi symbols as potentially divisive marked a major shift from its 2019 policy under which the insignia were widely identified with oppression or hatred and said displaying them was a potential hate incident. It grew widespread criticism from Democratic lawmakers on social media, including Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, who accused the Trump administration of normalizing hate. This is disgusting. Swastikas, nooses, Confederate flags are symbols of hate. Lynching is a federal hate crime. The world defeated the Nazis in 1945. The debate on these symbols is over. They symbolize hate. Coast Guard, be better. Now, for them to get to a point, for the Coast Guard to actually to change this narrative, because, they fall under the Department of Homeland Security, and who is in charge of the Department of Homeland Security? Is it Kristi Noem? But they changed it from being prohibited to being potentially divisive. So they didn't say they couldn't have them. They just said they're potentially divisive, but you may get some pushback from it. But prohibited means you can't have them at all. Potentially divisive means you can have them, but it could cause division. So you're telling me, from what we know about history, with Nazi Germany with the swastikas, United States soil with the lynchings and the nooses and everything, that this administration would allow a military branch under this administration to change the narrative of how these things are viewed. For what reason? Who are they trying to pacify? Who are they trying to pull in to join? This goes along with something I talked about before when we were talking about ICE agents and the masks and the hats and all these things. You have people, and I read this article and I didn't print it out, but I read it a couple of weeks ago, where they're saying that you have people that are acting or have been hired as ICE agents, no background checks to find out if they have a criminal background, anything like that, no training. They've just thrown them out in the streets to round up people that don't fit the complexion for the protection. And then you have these things like this in the Coast Guard, where they're minimizing the impact of nooses and swastikas. And then at the same time, you have people who voted for this that pick and choose the things that they want to defend out loud, and the things that they say were taken out of context, and the things that this administration is doing to minimize the history of everything that's going on in this country. But at the same time, they're loud when it comes to someone in their family getting their SNAP benefits taken away. So basically what they're doing is they're straddling the fence and defending one thing and upset about another thing, depending on how it's impacting them and their family. Because I did a lot of looking yesterday after I seen this about the swastikas, and I looked at a lot of military websites and things, that I follow sometimes. And on these military websites, I didn't see the outrage about the swastikas and the nooses and how the Coast Guard changed it and then had to change it back. I didn't see any outrage about that. But I see outrage from military members in these forums when they talk about the things that they're trying to take away, or the VA benefits and things like that, but no outrage about the swastikas and the nooses. Not being hate speech, but only being divisive. That tells me a lot about those who have served this country. When you're more in an outrage about just the monetary value of what you can gain or your benefits, but when you serve swastikas and nooses and things like that, weren't even in the forefront of your thinking because you knew that it was prohibited. Now, you may have had military members during your time that you served that had this mindset of white superiority, but they could not display it because they knew there was consequences to their actions. But now that some of these people are no longer in uniform and they see these things, they don't speak up about them because people like me that they serve with, that they called their brother at the time, because I'm not close to them and they don't see me anymore and they don't, they still consider me a brother from afar. They're not in an outrage about this, the swastikas and the nooses and everything like that. No, they're not. Because deep down, there's a lot of them that I've served with that have this mentality about wanting to fly the Confederate flag, about wanting to display the nooses, about wanting to display swastikas against the Jews. Brown hoodie, the same as Hitler's brown coats. Yeah. These, I've said this many times. History repeats itself. May not be in the same clothing, but in the same manner. In the same manner. May not be in the same verbiage. May not be in the same actions. But it will come around. It will come around. And when it comes around, you will recognize it, because if you know history and you read history and you're up to date on what history is all about, you can see where this administration, as Brown Hoodie said, the same as Hitler's brown coats. Not just that, but the person that sits in this White House wants to be like Hitler. He wants to be like Kim Jong-un. He wants to be like Putin. He wants to be like all these dictators around the world that he invites in. He wants to be like the king of Saudi Arabia that came to the office the other day, who was in charge of killing a Washington Post journalist, Khashoggi, and they still invited him and embraced him with open arms. This is what we're dealing with. And when you have a person that sits in the Oval Office that represents us as a country, as a nation, and he's inviting people like this onto our soil, let's think about it. Last week, the former Al-Qaeda member, Al-Qaeda leader, was invited into the White House. This week, Prince, I can't remember what it was, Saudi Arabia, one of the big guys that gave all this money to just Jared Kushner and all that, he was invited to the White House, who reportedly killed a Washington Post reporter because he didn't like what he was reporting. Dismembered him, got rid of the body. And he's sitting in the Oval Office with the person that we call the leader of the free world. Is it normal? Come on. Case in point. Case in point. The G20 started yesterday in South Africa. And our administration, the United States administration, said they weren't sending any representatives because they have a problem with the way South Africa is treating whites in Africa. They say they're taking their land. That's why I invited the Afrikaners to be able to come here legally with no problems, no hesitation, and so on and so forth. But we're not attending the G20. But let me tell you who else is not there. The president of China is not there either. Neither is Russian President Vladimir Putin is not there either. But they sent representatives. Here's the keynote of what I want you to hear. It's not about the G20. They're going to do what they do like they always do. They get together. They come up with some ways that all these nations can work together. Great. But the symbolism of who's not there. Three of the largest powers are not being represented by the main leaders of those countries. Xi Jinping from China, Putin from Russia, and the person that sits in the Oval Office here for the United States of America. And we didn't even send representatives, as I said. But here's the part I want you to hear. Russian President Vladimir Putin won't travel to South Africa as he is the target of an international criminal court arrest warrant over his alleged involvement in abducting children from Ukraine. South Africa, as a member of the court, would be expected to arrest Putin if he set foot on South African territory. So he's not going, not because he doesn't agree with it or he has some other scheduled things going on. He's not going because of war crimes against these kids and abducting children from Ukraine, that South Africa has a responsibility as a member of the court to arrest him if he sets foot on South African territory. See what I'm saying? See, this is. I'm gonna say it again, and this is for those in the cheap seats. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. This person is not going to this meeting because he could be arrested for the crimes that he's committed. Netanyahu, same thing. He doesn't go certain places because he can be arrested because he's guilty of war crimes and is supposed to be put on trial. This president of the United States of America, with what he's doing in Argentina, or Venezuela, whichever one it is, with the bombings of the boats, could be held in account for the same type things. But he goes and picks and chooses where he's going to go, where the consequences can't be held against him when he travels. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. As I told y'all, that's my mantra for now. Something will change in time. Maybe. James Battle, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Kevin Banks, my brother, good morning. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Brian Hoodie, good morning. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. So, yeah. So, Vladimir Putin didn't go to the G20 simply because he's a wanted man. This person sits in our Oval Office didn't go because he's saying that he don't like the way Afrikaners are being treated in South Africa. When what they're doing, and I've reported this on here before, they're not killing all these farmers, as they say. I just watched an interview on 60 Minutes last week that talked about South Africa. And it talked about how white South Africans are building their own little communities because they're saying that South African government is not protecting them. So they're building their own little communities and everything. This is the same article that I pulled, interview that I pulled what Elon Musk's father had to say about South Africa. And if America is not majority white anymore, the country will fall. All these different things. But these were in that interview. If you get a chance, pull up 60 Minutes last week. Pull it up on YouTube. It's on there. So it's usually broadcast on CBS. Pull it up and watch the interview about South Africa. It'll tell you everything you need to know about apartheid and how it's not gone away, how it is still in action, and you just have people who you just choose not to have it on a larger scale. Why? Because they're not empowered to do it. That's it. And here we have things going on in this country that are affecting a large majority of people. But what they don't realize is what's affecting one affects us all. And if we're not going to stand up for something, what are we doing? What are we doing? James Battle, president of the Philippines, is sitting in The Hague because he was doing exactly what we're doing during his term. So-called war on drugs. Yeah, and I can't remember his name. Duarte, I think his name was, if I recall. The Philippine president, his name was Duarte, I think. But he said it was war on drugs, and he was just killing people randomly. He was just all willy-nilly doing whatever he wanted to in the Philippines at the time. He was tried, and he's sitting in The Hague. So-called war on drugs. which is what we're supposedly calling what we're doing with these boats in someone else's country, off someone else's coast. And nobody has a problem with it. Nobody has a problem with it. Well, some of us do, but a lot of people that voted for this don't. This is something else that popped up last night. It says Trump terminates deportation protections for Somali nationals living in Minnesota effective immediately. Friday evening, he said he was ending deportation protections for Somalis in Minnesota effective immediately. He said Minnesota under Governor Tim Walz is a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity. He posted this on Truth Social. He continued, I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating effective immediately the temporary protected status program for Somalis in Minnesota. Trump claimed that Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over. President DJT. Minnesota has a sizable Somali population, and the TPS programs allows Somali nationals temporary legal status to live and work in the U.S. because of the dangerous conditions in the African country. But how many migrants will be affected by Trump's announcement that he wants to end temporary protective status? Could be very small. A report produced for Congress in August put the number of Somalis covered by the program at just 705 nationwide. 705 nationwide. Congress created the program granting temporary protective status in 1990. It was meant to prevent deportations of people to countries suffering from natural disasters, civil strife, or other dangerous conditions. The designation can be granted by the Homeland Security Secretary and is granted in 18-month increments. 705 people nationwide are here on the TPS program that are Somali. But that's a small number, but it still has the same impact like the thousands of people that they want to send back to Venezuela or Haiti and so on and so forth that we've seen. And if you notice, you've never seen anything about ending the TPS program for any other countries other than those with Black and brown people. No other countries have been eliminated from this TPS program other than Black and brown countries. That's it. Black and brown countries. Let that marinate for a minute. Let's get into this. Let's go. Straight talk, straight talk, straight talk. You know, I've reported this many times. And it just came up yesterday where somebody put a bill up to stop this type of actions in the housing market. This was back in May of 2021. May of 2021. A Black woman's home appraisal jumped $100K after Black identifiers were removed. $100K, her house price jumped $100K. After she removed any semblance of an African-American Black person living in that home. She was in Indianapolis. Her name is Carlette Duffy. She lived in a historically Black neighborhood, was confused when she had her home appraised twice, and the figure came back below or what she paid for the house in 2017. So she made slight changes to her home and had a white male friend sit in for her, and the home's value reached over $100,000 more than what it was the first time and the second time. May of 2021 is when I talked about this just not too long ago because it was still occurring. And obviously it's something that's still occurring to this day because this week, Representative Ayanna Pressley unveils new bill aimed to combat bias in home valuations. It is a damning injustice that Black and brown folks have to whitewash their homes to get a fair shake during the appraisals process. Pressley exclusively told the Griot about her motivation to file the bill. Now, let me stop for a minute. I just want to say it this way. This is the year of 2025. Damn near 2026. I mentioned last week about the justice system. And I said I don't know if it was last week. I mentioned it to somebody. I was talking to somebody maybe. I'd maybe not mention it on the show. But I said this specifically. I said, when we talk about what's going on with the Epstein case and the Epstein files, who's going to be held to account, who's not going to be held to account. I brought up the fact that we see these injustices within the justice system when it comes to people of color. And one of the things we always say is the system is unfair. The system is unjust when it comes to people that look like me. But I told this person, I said, this is what we say, but this is what we have to realize. The system is working in the manner in which it was supposed to work for those who it was supposed to work for, which is not people of color. The justice system was not established for people of color at the time when it was established. Remember the 3/5 of a man when it came to vote? Remember we didn't have any rights at all? So this justice system we talk about, we are sentenced in a large masses above what other people are sentenced when they do the crimes that don't have the complexion. But what we have to realize, if we look at things, these systems that we talk about, that these people take advantage of, and what we're talking about here, where people have to whitewash their house in order to get the true value of their home, tells you everything about what's embedded in the roots in the soil of this country with some folks. They don't feel that even though this is your home and it can generate generational wealth, that you should be worthy of the full amount that you should get. Because what they're going to do is they're going to lowball you in order to let someone else buy it at that low price and be able to sell it again at the price that it should have been valued at. But when you talk about these things, there are people that get upset and say, why is everything about race? This tells you why everything is about race. We don't make it about race. We react to the racism that is caused by our race, that is put towards our race. When you talk about just a simple thing as selling your home and $100,000 difference just because you took pictures down in your home to make it seem like nobody black lived there, $100,000 difference in what your home is valued at simply because of the melanin content of your skin. Come on, people. And for those that don't have melanin content to the extent that I may have, even though I'm like bright and damn near white, but that's another conversation. We have to understand that you may not understand why we stand on 10 toes down and on business when it comes to how we're treated. You may not understand it. But just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you should dismiss it. And then I'll send this out to all those people that are agents, appraisers with people's homes, and you're dealing with their livelihoods. What are you doing? Why would you do this? Oh, I know. Because you aren't racist, because you have black friends. But the system you use, you implement racism into. See what I'm saying? There is no way, there is no how, and it shouldn't happen, that a person who decides to sell something, anything, that the value of what they own and what they're trying to sell should be minimized or devalued simply because of how I look and the race in which I stand in. So when people get a little pissed off and get upset and talk about, oh, why is everything about race? I say it and I'll say it again. We didn't make it about race. We're pushing back on the racism that is put towards us because of our race. And if you can't understand that, shame on you. Because at the end of the day, if we both were sitting beside each other, black man, white man, Chinese man, Japanese man, Mexican man, whatever, whoever you want to talk about, If we're all sitting beside each other and we all took out a knife and decided to cut our skin, one thing we know for sure, two things for certain. We all gonna bleed red blood. We all gonna bleed red blood, which is the makeup of a human. Yeah, we got animals. I'm not talking about animals, of a human being. What separates us is not even the melanin content of our skin. Let's just break it down. It's not even the melanin content of our skin. It's the mentality of when you look at someone that doesn't look like you, and you feel because they look a certain way that you have some type of superiority over them. That's where the difference comes in. All of our bodies function the same. We live and breathe the same. But when you get to the point of devaluing anything and everything about me simply because of my melanin content, it says more about you than it does about me. Because God has blessed me and the people that look like me to have this melanin content for a reason. We talk about slavery in this country. We come from descendants of kings and queens before we were slaves. And I'll be damned if I'm going to live in a country who devalues who I am because of the atrocities that were done to people who look like me. I refuse. And for you to devalue something as simple. No, don't get me wrong. There are people that look like me that get devalued as a human being each and every day that they walk the face of this earth. Just call it what it is. But when we get to the point where it's bleeding into and has been bled into and has always been involved in the systems that we use each and every day in order to improve our livelihood, what does that say about this country? What does that say about the people who are in this country that have these feelings towards us? Because at the end of the day, no matter how you feel about me, I will never let you disrespect me. I will never let you devalue me in a way that I know that you're devaluing me. And when I stand up for myself, I'm the angry black man. See, I'm the angry black man when I stand up for myself. But let's flip this for a minute. With everything we know about this white superiority complex, who's angry? Who's angry? Sounds to me, by your actions, you're angry. You're angry that you don't fit the bill to call yourself the superior race anymore. Sounds to me that you're angry because we have made strides in this country and in this world in spite of all the obstacles that you have put in front of us. Seems that you're angry because everything you've thrown at us has not stopped us. Seems to me you're angry, which is why you continue to do the things that you do against the people that look like me, the people with brown, they consider brown and black in this country. Who's angry again? When you talk about Jasmine Crockett and she's ghetto and she's this and that, who's angry? Sounds like you're angry because you're not as articulate as her. Sounds to me that you're angry because she is telling truth. She is speaking truth to power, and you're mad and you're angry because she's talking about you. Y'all don't hear me. They're talking about you. And because she's talking about you, you're angry. And you know how I know you're angry? Because you start putting out death threats. You start talking about doing harm to a politician who sits voted in a position by her constituency. And rather than listening and coming up with some type of retort to what she says, you don't have anything to push back on her with. So what you do is you go for the attack. How she looks, how she talks, how she walks, who she is as a person that you don't even know. But you attack her personal, but you can't attack her on the policies that she talks about. That's why you're angry. That's why you attack her. That's why you have the death threats. That's why you want to do bodily harm to her, because you're angry because you don't have the fortitude to be able to compete with her when it comes to talking about policy. But she's the angry black woman. I'm the angry black man. Seems to me you're angry. And I get it. I get it. I know why you're angry. I know exactly why you're angry. Because no matter what you've done, no matter what you continue to do, you will still see us walk around with shirts that say Black Excellence. You will still hear us play the song by James Brown, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. You will see us put, pictures up of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and all the other greats in this country that have done and made great strides for African-American folks in this country that you chose, that you had to eliminate from the face of this earth in order for you to push your agenda. But it didn't work. So you're angry, not because of who we are. You're angry because your plan continues to fail. Everything you do, everything you do, till you do right by me, everything you do gonna crumble. Yeah. So the people in the cheap seats that are devaluing us, whether it's our homes or as people, let it go. Let it go. Not only as a people do we know who we are, but we know whom's we are. Not only do we know who we are, but we know whom's we are. Let that marinate for the weekend. For those out there that want to devalue who we are, not only as individuals, but as a people. It's that simple. Let's get into this mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. It's the year 2025. Ooh, we almost over, y'all. And this year we've been focusing on the 3 P's. Purpose, power, and possibility. With purpose, I align my actions. With power, I claim my strength. And with possibility, I embrace the endless opportunities that life has to offer. Today's mind, body, and soul. So, Thanksgiving is this Thursday. And we're going to all gather with family and friends if we can, if we're close by, but it'll be family and friends or however you celebrate. And this occasion has nothing to do with what they want to talk about, Christopher Columbus and the Pilgrims and the Indians. At this point in life, we all understand the falsities that are embedded in that story. Let's just be real. But we still gather under the guise of being together with family and everything. And what we find out is that in this time, we get together and we talk about being thankful. We talk about what we're blessed with and how thankful we are. But I want to add something in there. And this something is called gratitude. Gratitude. Gratitude is the state of being grateful. Thankfulness is an emotional response that combines appreciation with recognition of benefit. Gratitude is the expression of appreciation for what one has. It affirms goodness and strengthens relationships, often arising spontaneously from within. It's not just a feeling, it's a discipline. Practices like journaling, prayer, or simply naming what you're thankful for can cultivate resilience and increase life satisfaction. Gratitude is a social emotion. It deepens bonds, encourages reciprocity, and fosters community. Gratitude is the anchor that steadies the soul, reminding us that blessings outweigh burdens. And tonight, not tonight, but today, because we're in a world that keeps pulling us in every direction, gratitude is what keeps us from drifting. Gratitude. I want to ask you to take a little time, and it doesn't have to be today, but leading up to Thanksgiving, Thursday. Because each and every day we wake up, we should have some semblance of gratitude that we were able to wake up today. But leading up to Thursday, when we get around and we say our grace and we say what we're thankful for, and depending on how you do in your family and everything, I want you to think not only of how thankful you are, but the gratitude that you have each and every day. Practicing and recognizing how your gratitude, not only for what you have, but how you feel towards others, impacts your life. And I want to use this example that I wrote down. It says, think about an anchor. Think about an anchor. It doesn't erase the waves. It doesn't silence the storm, but it holds you steady. That's gratitude. The anchor doesn't eliminate the waves. In that storm that you're going through, that anchor holds you steady. When bills pile up, gratitude reminds you you still have breath, you still have a chance. When relationships get tested, gratitude reminds you love has carried you this far, and love can carry you even further. When the weight of struggle feels heavy, gratitude whispers, blessings are still present, even in the shadows. Gratitude shifts perspectives. It says, I see the burden, but I choose to magnify the blessing. And I want you to hold on to this one right here. Let me repeat that for you. I see the burden, but I choose to magnify the blessing. It's not denial, it's discipline. It's not weakness, it's strength. Disguised as humility, gratitude is a posture that transforms survival into testimony. So as we move closer to Thanksgiving and into this holiday season, as they say, and going into the new year, I want to challenge you with something. I want you to think about everything you've been through and how you've overcome everything that has come your way. And I want you to reflect on it. I want you to dwell, because dwell is not a good thing. I want you to reflect on your past. And I want you to look at where you're at. And I want you to see that vision of where you're trying to go. And as you're doing that, I want you to think about that anchor that has kept you steady through it all. Because even though most of us don't recognize and don't use the word gratitude on a consistent basis, we have it. It's our anchor. It is in us. What I want you to do in this challenge is going in between these holidays and going into the new year. I want you to wake up each day and think about gratitude. Think about all the things that have happened to you that you could have said, I can't do this no more. Think about all the things that someone has doubted you about how good you are and what you can do. Gratitude. So in this season of being thankful, being around family, getting together, the gatherings and the exchanging of gifts, and then the new year coming where we're making lifestyle changes. Gratitude. And I want you to continue to say this. Put this in your morning ritual. If you do your affirmations or you do your prayer or you do your moments of silence in the morning, think about this. As I mentioned, anchor. And say this each and every morning you wake up. Gratitude is my anchor. Gratitude is my anchor. And what you'll realize when you say this in the mornings, by mentioning that gratitude is your anchor, before you start your day, you have already steadied your soul. You have already steadied your soul. So no whatever happens to you throughout the day, gratitude is my anchor. Nothing will sway you. You know, you may get a little shovel, but that anchor is going to hold you steady. Hold on to that. Go into this holiday season and the new year and express gratitude for everything you've had, everything you may have lost. Be grateful. Because I think sometimes we concentrate on what we've lost. But do you know someone somewhere never had anything that you may have lost? But they're grateful for anything that they have had. We get caught up in the superficial things that we don't look at the reality of, yeah, I've lost a lot. But the things I've lost, somebody prayed for and wanted and has never had. So why are you so ungrateful? Gratitude is my anchor. Gratitude is a state of being thankful. It's both a feeling and a practice of recognizing and appreciating the good in our lives. Gratitude is the state of being thankful. It's both a feeling and a practice of recognizing and appreciating the good in our lives. It's more than saying thank you. It's an intentional acknowledgement of value, kindness, and blessings, whether they come from people, experiences, or challenges. Gratitude is my anchor. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I got some comments that came in. My bad. Doug Fawcett is in Big Fred Watch. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Gratitude. Love it, brother. Thanks for sharing. Tommy Dorsey. Appreciate you, bro. Thomas Foster. Thanks for the gratitude talking this morning. I need it, brother. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Announcement. I won't be on next week. I'm going to be doing some, visiting with some peoples for the holidays and everything, but we'll be back again. Looks like I'll be back. I wrote these down and I'll put something up. 6 December will be the next show, if I recall, because I'll be off next week. 6 December. Then I got another engagement that I'm going to be going to the following week. So looks like I'll be gone for 2 weeks that time, but I'll be back on the 27th. So 6 December, 27 December, those will be the last 2 shows for this year. I'll put some things out here and there, but I want to say this before I tune off to turn it off. Before I tune out today, I want to say this. My gratitude towards each and every one of you who has ever tuned into this show flows deep. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the support. One thing that really stands out to me is that there's people that tune into the show that I probably haven't seen in over 20 something years. They comment, they all the different things that you do. And it lets me know that what I'm doing is not in vain. And I appreciate everybody that tunes in and what they do and what they bring to the program, because I can't do this by myself. I can't do this by myself. All the people that support me, thank you. And we're going to continue. Big things coming in January, in the new year, where we're going to revamp some things. But hey, nothing's going to change. We're just doing a revamp. So I appreciate everybody. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family. Don't eat too much turkey. Don't do too many crazy things. If you're traveling, be safe. Traveling mercies, get out there on the road. And if there's somebody that you haven't talked to, and I'm going to get in this check-in again. If there's someone that you haven't talked to, if there's someone that doesn't have family around, or they've lost loved ones during this time, this season is a rough time for a lot of folks who have lost loved ones. This is the exact time when it's time to reach out and check on people. This is the time where you understand that gratitude is your anchor, and that gratitude should be extended out to those you haven't talked to in a while, to those that may be struggling during this time, to those who may need a little bit of extra during this time. Don't overlook them. And if you need help or you need somebody to talk to, don't hesitate to reach out to somebody. I know it can be hard when you're in your own little zone, or you got your things going on. You don't want to feel like you're a burden. You're not a burden. If the people that love you, you're not a burden. You're a blessing. Reach out. Let them know what you're dealing with. Be vulnerable with what you're dealing with. Stop holding it in and fighting these battles by yourself. Nobody should be in these battles by themselves. You got too many people that love you that you shouldn't have to hesitate to pick up the phone and call somebody. If you need to call me, I'll give you the number 770-880-4528. 770-880-4528. If you need to call me, call me. Even if I don't know you and you need somebody to talk to, pick up the phone and call me. 770-880-4528. Trust me, I'm going to pick up the phone and I will listen to whatever you got to say. Because at this time, in this time of season, there are a lot of things going on in a lot of people's minds, and we want to see you make it into the new year. We don't want this to be your final year. So if you need to pick up the phone and call. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I love y'all. I'll be back, as I said, December 6th. And then we got some big announcements coming in. They're going to be coming in soon. OT, my brother, appreciate you, bro. Facts, appreciate you, bro. And as I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. He's never left you, nor forsaked you. Gratitude is my anchor. Gratitude is my anchor. I'm out. Peace.